Hello, friends. Today I'm putting down my uke for a couple minutes because I want to talk about practicing with a metronome. If you've been playing music for a bit or you've read about music, you've probably been told that you should be practicing with a metronome. But did you ever step back and think about A, how to practice with a metronome, and B, why you should practice with a metronome? A metronome is a great tool in the music room, but it can also be detrimental to your growth if you're not really using it effectively. So to start with, what is a metronome? A metronome is any device. It could be analog, like this old one that was my grandmother's and does not keep good time anymore. Or it can be something digital like I have on my iPad here, which is really great. If you have a smartphone, which you probably do if you're watching this video, you can download hundreds of metronome apps for free. So there's no excuse that you can't afford one. They are easily accessible and they're also free online ones. And what they do is they keep even time. As much as we as humans like to think that we have great time and perfect time, we do not. Not even close to it. Just think about the last time that you were sitting around bored and how slowly time seemed to pass. Or if you were in a hurry and how everything just flew by you. Our concept of time really is dictated by how we're feeling and is not going to be perfect. Our internal pulse is not always the same. So it's important to have a tool to set us in line and tell us where that real tempo is. So one thing that you can do with a metronome is if you're learning a piece, it's great if you have a tempo marking on the piece to check that against the metronome, just so your ear knows. Now that's a very simple way that you can use a metronome, is to check the tempo of a piece or the performance speed that you have it at. But more importantly, we can use a metronome when we break down tunes. So if you're learning a new song, and this applies whether you're finger picking or whether you're strumming through chords or you're doing a chord melody, it doesn't matter. This can really be used with any piece of music that you would like. When you're in the practice room, the first thing you want to do is not use a metronome. You want to learn your fingerings and the musicality of the piece outside of the metronome, as it can be very rigid. And also we want to have the fingerings under our fingers so that we're not second guessing ourselves while we're stuck in a specific speed. So once you have those fingerings down and the voicings for the chords, then you can turn on your metronome at a very slow tempo. I find 60 beats per minute is a great place to start because it's a very common time. That would be 1 second in the passing of time. So it's a click that we hear very readily in everyday life and is a pulse that is really ingrained in us much more than many other tempos are. So that can be a great place to start, but it really depends on the piece and the speed. But you want to find a metronome marking when you're starting a piece that you can get through the piece at. Not perfectly, but that you can get through without having to stop and start over. And then you want to isolate the parts of the piece that are hard for you, be it a specific phrase of music, or maybe just a certain chord change can be very tough for you. And that's where the metronome can really come in handy. You want to take that tempo that you already found that you can play through the piece at, but not perfectly. And then you want to take these specific bars of music or these specific chord changes and slow that tempo down. And it might even be half that speed that you started at, where you can play that piece perfectly. And each time that you do it, give yourself maybe just 2 or 3 beats per minute on the metronome to build up that speed. And while this may sound like a very slow process, you'll find that as the fingerings get under your fingers more and the muscle memory is there, that you're able to speed up much more quickly. And what we can also do in this is after we've isolated a specific phrase, once we have that perfectly, we also have to be able to get in and out of that phrase. So you can add the preceding and the bar that comes after it once you're comfortable with that initial phrase, and then you're practicing a larger chunk. And you can open this up to finally encompass the entire piece. Likewise, if you're just practicing a chord change that is very tough for you, a great exercise to do is to set your metronome on 60 or 70 beats per minute, something quite slow, and just strum the chord once. So you could strum your G7th chord once and wait for 4 clicks, and then strum your C major chord and back and forth and back and forth. And the same way, we want to build up the tempo as we go, as our fingers get more used to these new motions that we're putting them through. Remember that in music, we're very much forcing our fingers to do things that we don't do in normal life. And it can be awkward for our brain to tell our fingers to do this very, very dexterous exercise that we're not used to. So it's important to really bring it down to a slow tempo and try it there. Now, one thing that you want to remember is not to become reliant on the metronome. Music is living and breathing. Just because you have a metronome tempo does not mean that we are becoming robots. It is a tool to work through pieces. When we get to thinking about performance, musicality, dynamics, all of this, we can stretch the time, and it's indicative of the piece and of music as a whole as to how much we want to stretch that time. Maybe a certain bar will have a small retard in it so that we're not going too fast and we're leading up to that next phrase. And these are the things when we're doing the final polishing moments of a piece, when we have it fully under our fingers, that we turn off the metronome and we practice it with just our internal pulse to get real feeling. I hope this helps a little bit. If you have any more metronome tips, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear them. I always love talking about these things. I'll see y'all next week.